Let me show you how to be a good Bayesian.
This episode is a journey through the modern tech landscape. My guest, Jordan Thibodeau, went from being a passionate gamer to building a remarkable career at Google and Slack, where he's helped shape teams, culture, and learning communities inside some of the world's most influential companies. Jordan is one of those rare people who can talk about AI, mergers and acquisitions, and the future of capitalism, and somehow make it all feel deeply human. In this conversation, we explore how AI is transforming work, what it really means to adapt to constant change, and why investing in people is still the most powerful growth strategy in tech. We also dive into the chaos of the AI boom, the opportunities hidden in it, the massive M&A trends reshaping the industry, and the reality behind those eye-popping compensation packages. Jordan shares how knowledge sharing, soft skills, and personal branding can accelerate a career far more than a perfect resume ever could. Whether you're navigating your first job in tech or rethinking your path in an AI-driven world, Jordan's story will remind you that progress in work and in life always comes from curiosity, courage, and community. This is Learning Bayesian Statistics, episode 145, recorded October 14, 2025.
Let me show you how to be a good Bayesian. Change your predictions after taking information in. And if you're thinking I'll be less than amazing, let's adjust those expectations. What's a Bayesian? It's someone who cares about evidence.
Welcome to Learning Bayesian Statistics, a podcast about Bayesian inference, the methods, the projects, and the people who make it possible. I'm your host, Alex Andorra. You can follow me on Twitter at Alex_Andorra, like the country. For any info about the show, learnbayesstats.com is la place to be. Show notes, becoming a corporate sponsor, unlocking Bayesian merch, supporting the show on Patreon, everything is in there. That's learnbayesstats.com. If you're interested in one-on-one mentorship, online courses, or statistical consulting, feel free to reach out and book a call at topmate.io/Alex_Andorra. See you around, folks, and best Bayesian wishes to you all. And if today's discussion sparked ideas for your business, well, our team at PineC Labs can help bring them to life. Check us out at pinec-labs.com. Hello, my dear Bayesians. Today, I wanted to thank Guillaume Berton. Yes, I can say the real pronunciation because Guillaume, too, is a French man. So welcome, Guillaume. Bienvenue à Learning Bayesian Statistics. I'll see you in the Learning Bayesian Statistics Discord. Thank you so much for supporting the show on Patreon. If you too want some Bayesian perks like access to the Discord, some monthly Q&A when you need them, and from time to time some books giveaways, well, you can get into that too at patreon.com/learnbayesstats. This is always extremely helpful, and I'm always very grateful to anybody who can chip in, because I literally use this money to fund the show, contacting the guest, editing, recording, hosting, and then marketing and publishing the episodes. All of that is done thanks to you, patrons. So thank you so much again, Guillaume. See you in the Discord. And in the meantime, let's talk about career advice in the age of AI with Jordan Thibodeau. Jordan Thibodeau, welcome to Learning Bayesian Statistics.
Dude, happy to be here, and I couldn't even spell Bayesian, and I'm really impressed I was able to understand the words. I'm really excited about that. So happy to have you here. Shout out to Jesse. I've known this guy since I was 13 years old, and I'm always Grabowski, and I always screw his name up. But he's an awesome bro. We go way back. He met him on the internet. We were playing Warcraft 3 on the forums. I won't give our usernames because I don't want to get doxxed, and there's a lot of just crap out there. We were very nice though. We talk shit to people. And then he was just like, hey, I'm super smart, and I'm going to teach you all these things in political science. And this is before I went to college. He's like, because we're the same age, he's like, never forget Campbell's Law. Never forget that. any statistic that you focus on seeing at their goal, by doing that, you undermine it. And just remember that, Jordan, because you're going to see it in corporate a lot. And I was like, whatever, man, stop smoking crack. And then when I came to Google, I would see people like, this is the metric we're aiming for, like, hit this. And then people would just do these squirrely things inside and undermine themselves. So anyways, Jesse connected me to you. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, no, you bet. I mean, I am super happy and excited to have you on today. It's going to be an original episode that I think is going to be super helpful and actionable for my audience, who, as you know, is more technical probably than yours. And we'll get to your show in a few minutes. But as I'm guessing, people can already hear, Jordan is used to making podcasts. He talks very well, as you can hear. I really encourage people to go check out his podcast, the SVIC podcast, because you talk about a lot of very interesting topics at the intersection of tech, AI, HR advice, and this is really practical and actionable for the audience. Really recommend it. So we'll put that in the show notes. If you're on YouTube, if you're watching the episode on YouTube, we have the collab new feature activated, so you will see Jordan's YouTube channel on these. So yeah, welcome again.
Can you also shout out the OnlyFans account?
Sure.
All right, it's called Feet in AI. We have one supporter. It's Quentin Tarantino. It gives me about $20,000 a month, and all I gotta do is just show my feet and read the AI research. It's fantastic. No, it doesn't exist, but it can exist if your users want it. Whatever the users want. So thank you very much for introducing us, and I appreciate it. So where do we start?
No, you bet. And yeah, thanks Jesse for introducing us. Completely agreed. Jesse is, I think, the closest to a genius I've ever worked with and just been friends with. So, like each time you work and talk with him, he raises the bar for anybody then you have around you. So that's that's a blessing. That can be a curse too, but that's mostly a blessing.
It's true. And the thing with Jesse is he's one of those weird quants that like also has amazing people skills and could be in politics. So he knows how to he knows where you are, and he knows reference points of things that click in your mind, and he can put the complex and simplify it to make sure you learn and you're also not put down by him, because he has like no ego or anything. And he was mentoring me, and he's bro mine, same age, but in college he was trying to help me learn some concept, and he basically was like giving me Star Wars references, and basically like, you're the Dagobah system right now of Yoda, and I believe in you, and you just need to lift the X-Wing out of the swamp. I believe in you, Jordan. And it was like super cool. So anyways, I usually talk a lot of shit about him in person, so I don't want to overly fluff him up all the time. So anyways, he's kind of a douche though too, but people have to learn that personally. No, we're just kidding. So where do we begin, my friend?
Yeah, so last thing about Jesse, he was on the show, episode 124, people, and that's going to be in the show notes.
Probably the lowest rated episode you ever had, right? Did you lose 10,000 subs when you had him on there? Yeah, it's tough.
Yes, yeah. But it's got a huge half-life, so actually I lost a lot of people because they weren't smart enough to understand Jesse, and then the smart people just flooded in, so then I earned even more subs, but just, later, so that when people had listened to Jesse and understood, then they subscribed en masse. So yeah,
fantastic. So you basically lost the All In podcast 1 IQ people, and then you ended up gaining the Lex Friedman PhDs in there. So exactly. excellent trade and audience. Well done.
Exactly, yeah, that was perfect for me. So today we're gonna mainly talk about you, Jordan. Enough about Jesse. If you folks haven't heard about this episode, do listen to it, because Jesse has a very interesting background first, and also he works on state space models, which are a very powerful branch of models. So let's keep it here. What about you, Jordan? So first, maybe tell us where are you joining from right now? What are you doing nowadays, and how did you end up doing that?
Yeah, joining from a meth lab, actually. So this is actually a Ghibli of my dad and his favorite dog and everything. Her name is Josie. When she roughs, she rolls her R's like she's Mexican, even though she's Australian Shepherd. She's got a bit of a complex. She's like, oh, he's part Mexican, so I'm going to, like, appeal to him like a good executive. I'm like, stop it. So I, born and raised in the Bay Area, and eventually got a job at Google. Spent about 10 years at Google. I worked 8 years in mergers, acquisitions. And then after that, Slack reached out and was like, hey, do you want to, like, rebuild? And I'm like, what do you pay? And I gotta, use emojis like a 13-year-old girl on here. I'm like a man, but pays good. So then I joined, and I was like, I'm never going to I'm never going to a big company again, because I joined Google at 30,000 heads, and they grew to like 200,000 heads, and it was like a fast-moving, like, big company, and then by the time I left, it was like a fast-moving government, which is not very good. And great company, fantastic experience, great people, 10 would do it again, but I was looking for something smaller where I could get impact, and I wanted to build, and so Slack was about, 4,000 heads. And for people who are not in the Valley, like, 4,000 is pretty big. And way before I worked there, I used to work at a factory in Silicon Valley. From age of 12, I was working weekends every now and then once over age 18, I started working there full time, and that was like 10 or 15 people. So I'm from blue collar to white collar, and that was a really cool experience. But 4,000 is considered small, I guess, kind of in the Valley, and so it was nice. And then within 90 days, Mark Benioff was like, haha, no you don't, and acquired us. And so I was like, oh no, back in the beast. But we got a $27 billion valuation, so I was like, hey, stock goes up, I like it. And then the acquisition funniness where you're waiting for the federal government to approve your deals. You can sit on your hands for a year. But at the same time, I was still doing acquisitions for Slack, but couldn't tell Salesforce because that's called gun jumping. We don't want to go to jail. Deal closes, and then eventually, when you find your first true love? I found mine October 30th, 2022, and that's when ChatGPT came out. I saw that and I was like, oh my god, this thing can do script kiddie work for me. So most of your audience is like, I invented Johnny 5 and I do all this coding and I manage a database of 100,000 lines of code. And most of us in HR are like, we're trying to get a spreadsheet to connect to doc and produce PDF. And so I learned how to do that myself manually, and then it took me months to learn how to do that before ChatGPT. And then I went to ChatGPT and I was like, this is what I'm trying to do. Can you build something? And it just spit out the code in 15 seconds. I was like, god damn it. So I got excited about that. And then my co-host, he's VP of Eng, used to work at Carta and the Wealthfront, and he is an engineering director at Google. And he's one of those Mensa level brain people like Jesse, who reads everything from biology to tech to AI to science to history to psychology. And you can just have a conversation about whatever with him. But he's also a really cool person. And he also knows about hip hop, so it's perfect fit. He was like, yeah, it's ChatGPT. Let me teach you how it works, and I'm just going to send every AI research paper to you. And then eventually we started our podcast. But in the meantime, I said, hey, is there a way that we can connect ChatGPT to HR databases and basically answer customer service HR questions of how do you enroll in 401k? Hi, I'm from France. I'm coming to America. What the hell is wrong with your healthcare system? And so those type of questions. And so we built a proof of concept. Then I wrote a white paper in Salesforce, basically explaining we're using this thing called MoveWorks, which was a semantic search bot, which was better than keyword search, but it was not as good as ChatGPT with embeddings, god tier. And so I wrote a white paper on how we could save millions of dollars if we just had internally at Salesforce, they would just build this bot out. And at the time when ChatGPT came out, we had literally VP of AI at Salesforce was like, this thing sucks. It's overrated, and it makes mistakes, and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of engineers, too, are up in arms. Yeah, this thing, privacy concerns, and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of it was there's a degree of envy and fear. People never cop to fear or envy. It's very easy. When I worked at the machine shop, I was also going to college at Santa Clara University and community college at Deanne's before then. And I wanted to become a hedge fund manager at the time. That's another long story. But I'd read a lot about free market stuff, and I'm a kind of free market guy. But I would always hear people say, oh, yeah, and in the factories, they lose their jobs because it's free trade, and also technological disruption. That's a part of it, too. And those moms who are working at the factory, and they have, 2 kids, all they got to do is retrain and go work at Goldman Sachs and become a partner and become a quant. It's that's not how real world works. And so a lot of those engineers who would read Thomas Friedman's World is Flat and crap like that would say to those people, yeah, just go retrain yourself. But then when ChatGPT came out and started producing some script and some code, a lot of them were like, oh, text coming from me, to a degree. To be clear, our show, there's 3 things that 3 groups we don't really like. the AI dreamers who are like AGI tomorrow, post-labor economics, the doomers, AI doomers who are like, this is P-Doom score, it's going to kill you all, like Yude and all those other kooks back in 2022, and then the deniers who are like, this thing is useless. And what we try to do is like triangulate to people who are operators who are in the field who want to know what is real and what is good and what can be deployed. And so by doing that, you end up getting all three groups to hate you. So eventually, I wrote my white paper and I tried to push to get this thing launched. And what happened was that the organization wasn't ready yet, but eventually that became, in a different form, Agent Force, which is a little bit overhyped. But one thing that your viewers probably can relate to, and maybe mention in the comment section, how many times did you see fresh tech that you actually saw that could do something better for your organization, but the organization was not ready yet, culturally or for whatever reason? So it's like that timing aspect and luck. So anyways, it did that for about 3 years. We were able to get ChatGPT approved for all of HR and Salesforce. I led that initiative, and then we got the semantic search bot going through all of Salesforce, and I met the CEO. Guys, this company's called MoveWorks. And I was advising him, like, can you just integrate ChatGPT because this thing makes your bot look pretty bad? He was like, sure, but we're going to double the price of what we charge you from X millions to X millions more. And I was like, that's a first-class ticket for your startup to go to nothing. And eventually they had to sell the service now for not a good price. So anyways, Joe and I started a podcast, and that was a good opportunity for me to take a break from corporate, take care of my dad for 2 years, who's in remission from cancer for, knock on wood, 10 years. And so I'm doing the podcast on the side for 2 years, and it's been great. And that's kind of where I am. So hopefully people will start listening. They're probably, hopefully if they are, like and subscribe Alex Show. It's really good. So there you go.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like, I definitely encourage people to give it a listen because, you have a bunch of insiders from the Silicon Valley, from the tech world, and at a time where this world seems to evolve so fast, I think it's extremely valuable to have this kind of outlook and people who really know what they are doing very deeply. And I really like what you were saying, that you are trying to thread the needle in between the three extremes of this topic, and I think it's the most valuable position to be in, at least for me, to gain insights as the most scientifically as I can do. So, and maybe we'll get back a bit more into your origin story a bit later, but curious, since we're already talking about that a bit, what's your current vision right now, from making the show, from knowing everything you know about the tech world? What's your current vision of where the AI revolution currently is? How do you see it blended with the different jobs, especially in comparison to the numerous fears that we were seeing at the beginning, which were like programmers and scientific people fearing for their jobs?
What a great question. And also, shout out to your question. Shout out to your show, too, because I feel like if you listen to enough episodes of your show, you actually get a marketable skill that can actually get you a good job and make money. So, like, people from my show who are listening, like, please sub this guy. He's super duper smart. And so, what a great question. I think where I could start with it first is I still think we're in the first inning of this whole entire thing. People have attention spans that are, and myself included, that are going like shorter and shorter as time goes on. Like, I find myself, it's harder for me to sit down and read books. I used to be able to sit and just bang through books, and now it's like, what's on Twitter? What's this blog post say? Do I get too long, didn't read? And so, on the internet right now is directing the news cycle on various platforms, because we're, millennials now have arrived and they're reporters, and we get most of our information from the internet, and that then sparks what our conversations are going to be. And then also most startup founders, most captain of industries, politicians are there. And the thing with the internet, though, is it suffers from the issue of the silent majority. So what happens is you have the 1% on either spectrum that are just basically framing the conversation, and you'll get 1%ers, not just on political spectrum, they can just be super hardcore tech nerds, and they can be so ahead of on tip of the spear, bleeding edge, that they already assume, like right now, that everyone's using LLMs and everyone's using ChatGPT and everyone knows about RAG search and everyone knows about Perplexity and everyone knows about AI agents. When I was talking to my friend who works at a startup, 50% of the employees at a startup don't actually use AI in their work. Like, it's just like, what's going on here? You know, it's like you're full of, like, you got the Z's and millennials. Like, yeah, people just don't use it. When I was teaching people how to use ChatGPT in Salesforce, like, this was almost 7 or 8 months after ChatGPT was launched. I was going around, like, people were having me speak to teams. Like, VPs are like, you know what's going on? Can you talk to our teams about this? And people, I'd ask them, like, have you used ChatGPT or have you used Gemini or anything? And they'd just be like, no. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Your whole entire work is, like, writing projects and either sending memos and emails and things like that, and you haven't even touched this thing that can automatically generate those. I know, delve, M dash, it isn't this, it's actually that. But there still is a lot of things that can help you out with with your comms. And so I still think we're in the first inning. I also think that people are looking at what's going on in the hardware cycle, and they're trying to read the tea leaves and say, okay, well, NVIDIA now is doing dicier and dicier financing regimes to sell more GPUs, which makes sense. They could use all their money to say, you know what, let's go get into the foundry business with TSMC. But Jensen Huang knows that's a stupid idea because that's hundreds of billions of CapEx expenditure, and it's going to take years to see a benefit. And by the time he actually gets his chips out, the whole entire market could cave in, and now he's wasted a lot of money. So instead, what do? You invest in other companies that are buying your GPUs so that you can keep incremental sales increasing, and that you can start getting more GPUs retired so you can sell newer GPUs. But here's the thing. The problem with his business is it's always a hardware cycle. So there's only so many physical products that you can give people's hands. Eventually, you just say enough. Like, I used to tell my grandmother, like, I used to come to the house looking like Mowgli from Jungle Book, very emaciated, and I would stay summer with her, and she was a typical Latino grandmother who was like, you so skinny, you're eating 5 meals a day. You're going to get tamales, enchiladas, you're going to homemade tacos, we're going to make Taco Bell cinnamon twist with a real way, buñuelos were better, then we're going to do churros, and then you have horchata. And then I would leave the house looking like Winnie the Pooh with, like, big old man boobs and my stomach coming out. And eventually it's like, no moss, grandma, no more. And the same thing with GPUs at a certain point. It's like, people are going to have a good enough amount where they could buy more, but it's like, do I really need to buy more at that certain price point? Now, I'm not saying like it's the end of the future where tech gets good and we don't need new tech, but it's just more people don't need to buy as many at certain volumes. And Jensen saw that happen when the crypto boom happened. Everyone needed GPUs, and then the crypto miners figured out a way to use ASICs, like just basically dedicated chips specifically for Bitcoin, and then it just crashed his market out. And then he literally said, we got lucky with ChatGPT. It just pulled us out of nowhere. So he's thinking to himself, how do I keep the demand side going and not focusing so much on the supply? And TSMC is thinking the same way too. They don't want to put their neck out there, increase supply, and then it turns out we go into a brutal hardware oversupply, which leads to deteriorating margins. So, Jordan, where am I going with all this? What I'm trying to say is, once the hardware bubble hits capacity, which always happens in every technological bubble since like the steam engine to rail to infrastructure in the United States for like skyscrapers and highways and things like that, we then are going to see the input prices for AI go down, which is then will benefit the software stack such as OpenAI, and that will lead to them giving an opportunity of having higher margins that they can then give deeper discounts to different enterprise customers and expand wall-to-wall integration of their software so they can expand more. Or they can now, it's going to lead to less AI labs being out in the market and less competition for labor, which then means they can pay lower labor costs and no more of these $50, $60 million pay packages. Now, that was the market landscape. Now, the product landscape, when the stuff came out, everyone was overselling AI agent this, AI agent that, blah, 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 and it's going to be autonomous agents taking your job. But what I like to do always is, what are basic use cases in corporate America? Like, can you file an expense report? Can you book a meeting for us regularly? Can you set up a project for us? Can you organize an event for us and not like hallucinate? And for my metrics and use cases and people I'm speaking to internally as companies, the autonomous agent story wasn't there. Though the way I looked at it as is the intern story. An LLM is basically you're getting an intern 23 years old from Harvard, who's very sheltered, has helicopter parents, gets nervous about saying anything inappropriate, can sometimes do amazing things, but when it comes to the last 5% of the last mile that you need done is not there yet. I was in a plane ride with a guy who works in a Thomas car company. He said, I will use these things to code all day long, and it's fantastic, and it will come out with amazing ideas and pull the right libraries for me for certain things. And then some things that are just super easy layups, instead of giving me an elegant 30 lines of code pull request that's great, it gives me 400 to 700 lines of something monstrosity. And so that's okay for him because he knows how to look at this and what real code is. But he also knows we're not there at the point of like set it and forget it for robust jobs that engineers are seeing in their corporate jobs. Maybe for us script kiddies, set it and forget it for like things I've mentioned, but still it has hiccups. So where I see things going is it's going to continue to augment labor as like an Iron Man suit, but we're not in the situation of like post-labor economy. Now, there are certain sectors that get hit harder by it than others. And one sector that's definitely going to get hit hard is customer service. That's why I was pushing so hard for the integration of ChatGPT, because I could see that it could increase our case deflection rates. Case deflection rates are just fancy ways for HR people to sound important. But anytime Alex is like, hey, I'm getting paid so much money in my job, I don't know what to do, and how do I log into my 401k? He files a ticket, which is a case. And you can use ChatGPT to kind of answer some of those questions and lead to maybe 50% of those tickets not actually hitting a human. So anyways, I've rambled for a very long time. I hope I answered your question. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bayesian, learn Bayesian statistics. It's fantastic. Go for it.
No, yeah, that's perfect. I think it's great because it gives me a lot of doors that I want to open. Yeah, and so on the last points you made, basically on how to use Gen AI products in general to augment productivity. You had lately a very good episode that I'll put in the show notes. I don't remember the name of the guest. I always forget it, but I talked to you about that on WhatsApp. Yes, Sully Omar. That's the episode with Sully Omar. I'll put that in the show notes. I have the link here. I think this episode is great because you guys lay out the state of the the state of AI and also how Sully is using that himself in his work. That was interesting because that was resonating with a lot of my personal experience, where most of the time it will get me the first 80 to 95%, and then I'll need to take back control and basically knock that out of the park. But that's amazing because that allows me to ship things much faster than I used to be able to, because before I had to do everything almost from scratch, whereas now there is a lot of repetitive aspect or low intellectual value at the very, very beginning, or mostly in the middle actually of modeling work that you can just automate with these products, and then you'll knock that out of the park, which is great. But I found an interesting point in your episode with Sully was that it's actually very good if you are an expert on what you're using already. And so mostly if you're senior in one dimension of your work, that's going to be awesome because that's going to give you the Iron Man suit package basically that you were talking about. The problem is when you're very junior and you're fresh in all the dimensions, then it can be harder. And probably my advice here would be get really good at some dimension of what you're doing, and then you'll use these tools to get even better. But you need to get very good at some dimension so that you're attractive to a business in the first place. And so I think it's also a good place for us to transition here where I'm also curious to hear what your thoughts are. For instance, if people in my audience, they are working in companies where either AI is arriving, so that means either they are using off-the-shelf tools, they get access to Claude Code, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever, they need to be able to use that internally. Or they need to come up with their own fine-tuned LLMs, or they really like these new models, this new way of doing things, and they want to get into the core of the reactor, and so get a work at Google, at OpenAI, things like that. What would you recommend to these people in my audience that they do from an HR advice perspective, which is a hat you've worn during a lot of years?
Oh, great question. And to like reframe of like if they wanted to get into a top tier firm to work on either training models or work at Google and become a product manager and deploy these type of systems.
Yeah. Let's start with that. And then I think there is an interesting question that is going to be, what if they want to stay in their company but augment the work with these new tools? But I think it's kind of two different use cases. So let's focus on the first one you just talked about, and then we'll dive into the other one.
Excellent. So great question. So getting into these top tier firms, these companies get a ridiculous amount of media attention and applications coming in, and so it's kind of like trying to get into Harvard or Stanford or something like that. Everyone wants in. Now, the first tip I have for folks is you might have the rare bird who applies directly in the front door and goes through the screening process and goes through sourcers, and a recruiter sees their resume and he gets plucked out and has a conversation, goes to a hiring manager, goes through interviews to get a job. There's rare birds who get that. Most mortals, the way they get in is they know someone who works there and they say, hey, can you look at my resume? Hey, can you refer me to this job here? And here's a link to it. And that increases the odds, at least, that you're going to skip some of the steps of going through a sourcer, or at least it forces the recruiter to actually look at the resume that's sent to them, and your person that you've asked for a referral, if they know you well and you've worked with them, they can write a nice little note saying, I worked with this person for X, Y, and Z. You should really consider looking at them. And that will put you in the front of the line. Doesn't guarantee you'll get a job there, but it definitely helps. Now, that's for just, rank and file. I want to work in engineering and product. I'm not building AI models or doing anything super bleeding edge. Skills that are well known and seen in medium-sized companies and small companies, which is relatively would be easier to get into. Then the next thing, which is AI research. There's only so many people who can be in that sphere, and I met some people who were elite in that area, who were AI researchers at Google and Facebook, and they even have trouble getting into the right jobs in other organizations or top-tier startups like OpenAI right now, because there's only so many people who can work at such a level, have the track record, and have the ability to do so. I will say, though, if you want to get referred into jobs at Google, Facebook, the rest of these larger tech companies that are more standard roles, it always helps that when you go for the referral, send that LinkedIn message, but have it set up so easily that the person that you're asking to refer you, all they have to do is Control-C, Control-V, and get the referral into their company's internal HR database. If you let's get a coffee chat and blah, 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 and be around the bush, no, let's catch up, you're wasting that person's time. It's best to just go straight for the heart of the matter and here, this is what, hope you're doing well, this is what I'm looking for. If you can, I'm looking for this role. Can you copy and paste this message you can send to the recruiter? Here's my resume in a link form, not a PDF, so they don't have to upload anything. They can just put the link in wherever, and the person can click it and see your resume. And then also, I'm putting my name and my email, my phone number, and my area code or my time zone. Just make it as easy as possible for them to get into the applicant tracking system. Those are things that are very little, but it means a lot because the person on the receiving end is constantly getting these types of requests, and a lot of people don't know how to actually formulate their thoughts properly or actually communicate properly. And I've been on the receiving end of this a lot, and I love helping people, but sometimes it's like, what do you want me to do here for you? I'm confused. And you have my attention, now you're wasting it. Whereas an assassin like salesperson or a top tier referral, that's exactly what you need to see to get through there. Now, regarding your other, and another thing is, even if you get into these interviews, these jobs, there's always these different boot camps and things like that. I don't want to get into that. What I will say is, if you've gotten into a phase of recruiters says let's get a phone call going, or a hiring manager wants to do a phone screen, it's basically them saying to you implicitly, you have all the qualifications to get this job. And the rest of it is, once you go through an interview loop, are you going to say something stupid or just completely have your head explode, which leads them giving you a reason of not giving you a job. So, and also, there's an aspect of, is randomness to interview process. We like to act like there's a science of interviewing. We actually had a team at Google who would just go through people who were not given offers or were rejected and really dig into the feedback and say, you know what, actually this person has a very awesome track record. Maybe there's something we did or there's having a bad day, and get the right interviewers in there. People would come back, get a job from Google, and then they would track their performance compared to people who originally got accepted, and the people who originally were rejected ended up outperforming the people that we originally thought were good, which then showed to us, actually, this whole interview thing is, if anything, like performative work, or maybe at best making sure we don't have like a complete fraud or axe murderer in there. Like, what really matters is like, what is your track record and what have you done in the past, and maybe who's vetting you. That's why. And go ahead and jump in. I could ramble on more for it.
Yeah. No, I think So, and you'll continue for sure on these train of thoughts, but. Yeah, just wanted to say first, thanks. I think it's super valuable and actionable to hear you say that for people, because, as a candidate, you can get completely lost in all these applications and these processes, and so knowing how it works from the inside, what people like you inside are looking for, is extremely valuable, because. It makes the candidates not waste time, both for the recruiter and for themselves, which is very important. And I am also super impressed that you guys did that at Google. This is great. I think it's a great signal from a company to be able to look into what they've done, who they rejected, and then be able to say, actually we didn't have a really good legitimate reason to reject that person. Let's reach out to them again.
Right.
I've never heard of that, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and it was great because Google. I mean, every company goes through like a golden age, and you only know about you're at a golden age in your life or at a company until it passes. Because then you start re-looking at it and say, oh wow, like I was in a really good time, but at the time I was so focused on minutia that I didn't realize I was in a golden age. We might look at this path in this last 10, 15 years in stock market returns as like a golden age where it was like you just invested in anything that had cash flow and you were winning. And then we might go through what my great grandpa and grandpa went through, a depression where I was like 20 some odd years, 30 years, the stock market was just nothing. And then we'll look back and be like, oh man, we got it really good. And so that was a golden age of Google where you had a lot of people who were just didn't have egos, didn't think they're captive industry. They understood the culture of what Google is. It's just a gigantic experiment on that page. We're running all these experiments. We don't know the answers. We're going to see what fits and go from there. And so why don't we run our company the same way? And we're doing that for interviews. Now, another thing is I was in M&A, mergers and acquisitions. I didn't go deep enough into that, but I would have situations where we have a team of 300 engineers and product managers, top tier people, genius people, working on a certain product and it wasn't working. And the VP would say, hey, Jordan and team, go out there and find a company that's doing this better. And we would bring in a 5-person team of like these people who had like just random backgrounds, some didn't go to college or whatnot. And they built a product that was just cracked, that was just like crushing it for barely any payroll. And they had the market. And we would then bring them in for interviews. Like if they want to do the deal and we have to do interviews, make sure you're good. And I would have to sit with just like these people. Did you ever play Warhammer 40K at all by any chance? You know Warhammer? The video game. The little miniatures. It's the miniatures and it's a computer game. There's Warhammer Dawn of War. I love art. Me and Jesse used to play RTSs all the time. I was actually ranked globally 22 in Warcraft 3, 2 versus 2 random teams, to the point where if you're on the West Coast ladder, that's where the real men play. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk shit about East Coast or Europe, but like when I went to play East Coast or Europe, it always felt like JV League. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like maybe play behind one hand behind my back and play against people. West Coast was cracked. You know why it was cracked? Because at around 4 o'clock, 5 p.m. is when the Koreans came online, and they were the first in the 90s to make gaming a professional sport that you can make money off of. And they used to fill stadiums of kids watching top players like Slayer Boxer and things like that in the 90s play StarCraft. And these people were great, and they made money, but unfortunately, some of them, there's not unfortunately, there's mandatory military service in South Korea. And so they would have to end their career to defend their country, which is fine, whatnot. So anyways, the Koreans still have that same ethos in the gaming world, and so all the Koreans log onto Warcraft 3, and then they would accept me to play with them because I got high enough, and they would call me Gosu like I was pro, and I had like some of my old replays on the websites are down, but they'd have my replay files on there of me playing with Koreans, and it was like fantastic. And because of an idiot, well, hindsight bias, I was like, there's no future in any of this. I should quit and go get a political science major. And like a few years later, RTS gaming became big, and becoming pro became big, and people were making good money. So, anyways, I know I digress on all that and where I was going, but what would happen is we would get this guy who would come in through a girl, come in through an acquisition who was super good. And then I'd get this person who was like a Warhammer 40K psyker, who are these people who have like they have the telepathy skills and they're geniuses, but they're like demented because they're trying to prevent themselves from chaos coming in. And that's what like a senior engineer at Google is. Like he's like, my mind bears a great pain, because they're like just so smart and they're just cracked and they can do great things. And I have to sit and tell them like, look, I'm M&A, I'm a script kiddie, but just in this interview, just because this person can't just like do MapReduce or understand perfectly different auditing tables in their mind, or code things from scratch and know how to do logarithms instantaneously and matrix multiplication like instantaneously, doesn't mean they're a bad engineer. We brought him in here because your VP knows that this product, if it gets into Google, is going to be fantastic. Can you more focus on their experience and what they've done and judge them on that? And within 2 interviews, we would know if the person was good or not and decide to hire them. And so to bring this all back to what I started with in the beginning, a lot of interviews is performative work. And another thing is we have main character syndrome. So someone who's really good in your audience might go deep into Google interviews and then not get the offer, but not think of, wait a minute, you crushed it, but there was 3 other people who were interviewing for the same job, and maybe the guy who got it over you had just 10 more years of experience, or maybe a girl who got it over you had less experience but was really good friends with people in the interview loop. Those are things you just can't control. And I think from your audience focusing on statistics, hopefully they don't fall. I mean, it's easy for them to see when other people fall prey to statistical mistakes of thinking that like the edge case represents the whole entire population. But when you're in the driver's seat and focusing on something that you want, all that logic goes out the street, and you focus more on like your own emotions. Like the whole saying of, if a lawyer defends himself, you have an idiot of a lawyer and also a fool of a client. And that's kind of something happens when it comes to statistics. Now, connecting it to people saying in their company, how do I augment myself with AI, and like what should I be doing? How do I get started? I think the first thing is learn Bayesian statistics, watch this show, see who he has on, and read about it. The people think that like to be an expert, you have to have a PhD in some topic or whatnot. No, to be an expert is you just need to know 1% more than the person you're talking to. Do I know a little bit more about the subject than you relative to this person in this room? Not, do I know relative to the world? No. Relative to the world, my knowledge of AI, maybe I'd say middle of the pack. Maybe. I'm not going to say top tier, but I'll say middle of the pack. But then if you get me in a group of HR people, I would say I'm probably higher in the pack. And then if you get me in a room of people who are PhDs in AI, I would say I'm a novice. So when it comes to your own company of whatever size it is, if you want to learn more about these tools and things like that, the first thing to do is stay up on the topic, read about what other people are doing, hear about stories, and then share those resources inside your company. And what starts happening is, this was happening at Salesforce. I was just a random HR guy, and before I knew it, I was talking to the presidents of the company and got mentioned, and my project got mentioned in one of our Wall Street quarterly calls. It all happened because I was just known as a guy in Slack who was like just sharing stories about AI all the time. And then even to engineers at Salesforce who are principal engineers who would then come to me and ask me questions. And I was just like, what's going on with this world right now? Like this age, I'm the M&A guy. You should be talking about tech. Or, no. Like, what are you saying about embeddings? And you said something about alignment and pre-train and post. I was like, I slept at a Holiday Inn Express. But that's also a sign of when a new, novel, important tech happens, it shakes up the social order, and I love that chaos, because what it does is it jolts people, and what happens is some people put their head in the sand and they can't handle it. Some people reject it and fight it, and because those two groups are doing their drama, it then opens up the whole entire playing field, and there's less competition. So someone who's watching Learn Bayesian Statistics might hear a good podcast and say, oh, wait a minute, I just learned something valuable that I could use for an advantage to get my promotion and do better. So by you just being on top of it and sharing resources in your company, eventually people will start coming to you and looking at you as a thought leader. And just the fact that you might even not be able to answer their questions, but you might know someone who can in your organization, you get the reputation of, oh, this person gets stuff done. And you then get an aura of plus 10, get stuff done. And then you get aura of plus 20, where people are sharing, not only did you connect me with someone, I want to connect back with you that you helped me solve my problem. And this is what I learned about what happened. And this is with this technology, where it worked and where it didn't work. And then you're on your path of becoming an expert. And you go from there. I could go into very okay, you should probably go learn, read these papers here, and don't use Pinecone as much anymore because it's not important, and you should be focusing on this aspect of ChatGPT agent. It's no. Everyone has their own unique quest they're on. It's more of where can you plug yourself in so you can get information flow coming to you, so that you can use that information for your own unique benefit. So I'll end my sermon, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Learning Bayesian Statistics with R, Python, and other awesome stuff. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and actually, how did you do that? When you were, for instance, to take your Salesforce example. You were sharing resources with people. How did that work? Because I'm guessing also so it sounds like Salesforce is not like that, and that's great. But I know people who are in companies where it's expected that people stay much more in their line, and so that's great that you didn't have anybody tell you, hey, you're in HR, you should leave these technical stuff to the technical people, Jordan, okay? So yeah, how did it work concretely? How did you end up being able to sharing that, and what advice would you give to people to do that? Because I do agree this is very important to do, and I do the same, always share proactively, but I know some people have difficulties because they have pushback from upper management.
First thing I would say is my dad used to be a critical care trauma nurse, and he used to work at Valley Med in Kaiser, and Valley Med was a high-level trauma center where he would get gunshot victims coming in, and there would be other nurses who go to other ERs in nice suburbs and would never see a gunshot victim. And after he did that for a couple of years, he would just some nurses would see it first time and just freeze. And for him, he would see someone gunshot victims crash, and they have all these gnarly injuries. And the first thing he'd focus on is what's the biggest problem that I can triage now? And that was it's the 80-20 of keeping this person alive, and then I'll move on to the broken leg and stuff like that, which sounds really weird, but it's And so for your question, I would say to people, if you're an organization and they're telling you to stay in your line, first question you got to ask is, why am I in this organization in the first place? And I know it's well, I get a mortgage, and I'm this. Okay, if you get golden handcuffs and you're getting hundreds, millions of dollars, keep them on. But this audience, based upon who you are, Alex, and how smart you are, you're attracting very smart people that a lot of other companies would love to have these people in their organization, running around, asking questions, sharing information. And so that's the first thing you have to work on, is finding the right place. And I tell people, you should always be monogamous with your partner and in an open relationship with your employer. If you are not at least once a month or 60 days, just seeing what's around, talking to recruiters, talking to your friends to see what opportunities are, you're killing yourself, because you don't know there might be this company right now is giving you grief, but there'd be a company down the street has a better culture, 30% pay bump, and wants you to be you and would love to have you. So again, open relationship with your employer. Now, going back to your question about if I'm in a company that's in their lines and things like that, my role in M&A was basically, my job is to acquire a company that has a good culture, because the current company I'm working in is looking for something that our culture can't produce, and trying to bring that culture into our company to resuscitate it and bring back more energy without my company's culture squashing it. So my job is, please tell me, Alex, you play video games, you played the original Legend of Zelda games, the Sprite versions. When you have the sword, and you're trying to figure out which walls to bomb, and you hear dunk, 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 and it's like, oh, I can't put a bomb there. And you walk up, you go, tink, 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 and you put a bomb there. My job when doing M&A is I would have people who would throw brick walls against me saying, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, dunk, 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 okay, that's a federal law, I can't do that. And I go, dink, 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 oh, that's because someone just whatever is told to do this, so I'm going to go bomb that wall and push through it. And so I default towards I'm going to do things that are illegal and culturally acceptable, but I'm going to keep on pushing until someone tells me, okay, you can't do that. Doesn't mean I'm going to be a jerk or anything like that, but I'm not going to, the old saying is, seek forgiveness, don't seek permission. Because if you're constantly always, oh, can I do this? Can I do that? You're never going to be able to learn and grow and take advantage of something where the social order has been destroyed by AI, and now you have an opportunity to step up in the social order and have more opportunity. If anything, for people here on the show is, anytime you see a moment of chaos in tech where things are shifting, companies are going bankrupt, money's being thrown around, new ideas are happening, that should be a signal to you saying, okay, it's now time for me to put more risk on the table in my career. Not meaning go YOLO options, but meaning be a little bit more aggressive of what I'm pushing to learn and what I'm trying to do in the company, because you don't know where that's going to set you up.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And then if you start, poking a bit and then seeing that you've got too much pushback to your taste, then like that's a good signal that, okay, this relationship is not for me. Like, they don't want me for myself, they just want me to behave exactly like they want just everybody to behave, and so they don't really want me, they just want generic people, and so that's not where I'll give the best of myself.
And sorry to cut you off, I agree with you, and to be more concrete, because I want to give a better answer. My first answer was not my standards, but or I want to add to. I want to self-deprecate. Don't forget to like and subscribe, Learning Bayesian Statistics. What you should be focusing on is, number one, your relationship with your immediate manager. That's not one where you're like, tink, 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 and blowing up walls and trying to, that's the person that butters your bread. And the person at your skip level is the person that butters that person's bread. So you want to make sure that's aligned. But then when you're working cross-functionally in matrix organizations with different teams and things like that, doesn't mean you come out there and be a jerk. I mean, when I'm poking the sword and I'm looking for what a false wall is, I'm always putting in a lot of charisma, because I like joking and laughing at people. So that allows me, at least, if I'm making a request, people don't want to turn me down, but at the same time they do turn me down, it doesn't make the situation awkward. So I'm not a jerk to people. And I don't also believe in, there was a lot of scientists that think that I want to go into science and math because there's no politics involved, and all that matters is scientific truth. It's like, no, if there's humans, there is politics. Like Jonas Salk, I think he was the one who created the polio vaccine. There was some drama regarding when he got to the cure or something, he didn't stroke the right egos and mention the right people when he eventually won some award, and it ended up he didn't do the politics properly and it hurt himself. There was a guy who who created, I think, germ theory, and then he realized that the reason why people are getting sick in the hospital is because doctors aren't washing their hands, and so he was like, if you just wash your hands, people will live. But he was a jerk to people and brash. And because he was a jerk, had no charisma, he pissed off so many doctors that no one listened to him, and people died because of it. And it was only until after later he passed on, someone new people were like, that guy no one really liked, he was right about that, actually. And people were like, okay, I guess I'll listen to you. So knowing the softer skills it is important in there, and knowing which battles to fight or not. Like, if it's on your own turf and you want to do AI and this is what you own and control, then you have some leeway to go there. But if you're jumping onto someone else's turf, you better come correct and make sure that you're not ruffling feathers and things are aligned properly before you decide to put that bomb against the wall and push forward. And also, when I say bomb, for the record, FBI, I'm not saying you should blow anyone's home. It is a Zelda reference. Where should we go to next? Should we talk? What other topics do you think we should talk about, or things you want me to double down on?
Yeah. So yeah, just to piggyback on what you just said. Like the way you say things is indeed very important. If you can add some humor in it, it's always better. And then in the end, if you see that's not working out for you, just look around, as Jordan was saying. And yeah, like all that thing made me think about a friend of mine I talked to who has some managerial position, but he still has a manager. And I remember he told me he was talking with his boss to convince him to let some people go to some conferences, tech conferences, to learn new skills. And his boss told him something like he didn't want people to go because he was saying, what if they learn something new and then leave? And then my friend just answered, what if they don't learn anything and stay? It's much worse. So yeah, like I think it's the second mindset is to me much more interesting and a much better signal of a better company than the first one.
So true. That's a really good point. We had a president of HR named Laszlo Bock, who was the SVP or president of HR when I was at Google. Great dude, fantastic. And he wrote a book called Work Rules, just about how Google is HR. And he had a saying on his internal employee page that everyone could see. And the saying was basically, invest in people and grow them to the point that they can leave, but treat them so well that they don't want to leave. And it was just right. And my dad had the same ethos in his company. He ran an HVAC company with 150 employees. He started with doing gutter cleaning and then grew to the point where some of the sky rises in some of the skyscrapers in San Francisco, he used to call in a team that would bring in commercial grade HVAC rooftop systems from Chicago, bring them in on rail, and then he would call in helicopters to pick them up and then put them on top of commercial sky rises and do all their HVAC work. And he used to say, like, he has the ethos of his company. It's like, you're either continue growing or I am then going to give you a check and you're going to go start your own HVAC business so you can grow somewhere else. I mean, or keeping the organization that you can continue growing. But if you're so good that I'm holding you back, I want you to become a partner and you create your own company. So there are people who still would reach out, still in retirement, saying, thank you for getting me started. And so if you see people who have this zero-sum game mindset of like, I need to keep people in prison here, this organization, and I need to prevent them from growing, you got to get out of there immediately. And I hope your buddy decided to kind of like move on or something. Should we go into M&A? Should we go into crazy offers that we're seeing in AI? Like, what else should we talk about?
Yeah, I had that. Yeah, had that in mind for next. Just wanted to add. So yeah, like to wrap it up on that part of the conversation. Basically, sure, always keep in touch with the hard skills part, which is for my audience, the math, the stats, the algorithms. That's what you do when you listen to this show, when you read any book, when you learn any new skills in an online course. That's great. I know most of my audience already do that. But don't only do that. Also be able to learn how to communicate your ideas, how to make sure the models you're building with your sweat and blood are actually understood and used by people who don't have technical backgrounds. And so that's where, as we're saying, the soft skills enter. I think one of the best ways to do that is try and work in an open garage way. So like, of course I'd say that because I'm an open source developer, but the more of your work you have outside, publicly, where people can see what you do, the code you have, and the way you communicate about that, whether that's through a podcast or a blog or anything, that's going to help you tremendously. And finally, I have a great book recommendation for people who want to learn how to communicate a bit more efficiently, if that doesn't come, let's say, naturally to you, even though I think everybody needs to learn that. It's Charles Duhigg, Super Communicators book. I just put it in the show notes. Great one. He's a great writer, so it's very easy to read. You can also listen to it, of course, on Audible. So, like, if you feel like that's something you want to progress on, I think it's a good
Dude,
it's a good
send me the affiliate link for. You better have Amazon affiliates. If you don't do that, I'm gonna slap you. I say I love, but send me the Amazon link with affiliates because I want to make sure you get the 50 cents if I click the link because I'm gonna buy it right now. So I appreciate that. Also, I would follow on is there's a regarding charisma and everything. I think it's a learned skill, and people actually have it innately. It's actually a seed inside them. Some people have it fully bloomed into a gigantic, beautiful tree. Some just never have watered it. There's a book called the Charisma Myth. And it is written by the Charisma Myth: How Anyone Can Master the Art and Science of Personal Magnetism by Olivia Fox Cabane. I had the audio version. I listened to about 4 or 5 times when I was riding my bike to the Google bus just to like get it into my brain. Just like I listened to the 48 Laws of Power like multiple times, not to become a sociopath Machiavellian, but I consider it like in Harry Potter to protect yourself from the evil ones. You need to actually understand the dark arts, and so that's always a good one for corporate, understanding the games people play. Another
What's
point.
The book? I'll put that in the show notes.
The Charisma Myth: How Anyone Can Master the Art and Science of Personal Magnetism by Olivia Fox Cabane. And then the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. I highly suggest everyone listens to the audio version. It is the best narrated book I've ever heard in my life. And just listen to the opening. You should listen to the whole entire thing, but I guarantee you if you listen to the whole entire thing, you're going to reflect back on your career and say, yeah, there's places where I've actually violated certain laws that's hurt me. I think it's recommended reading for anyone going into any corporation, especially a large corporation. If I would have read that book before I went into Google, my career would have been even better because of it.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So put these 2 books, like the Charisma Myth and the
48 Laws of Power audiobook version, highly recommended for 48 Laws of Power. I had another point that you were mentioning about work, and it's just cycling through my mind right now. I'm sorry. A mind's a terrible thing. A mind's a terrible thing to waste. Let's see here.
we'll come back to you.
Yeah, I'll come back to me later. Sorry about.
No. I mean, we're saying a lot of things at the same time, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, something I'm also curious to hear you talk about is, like the crazy offers we're seeing right now.
Oh yeah, deal making. Oh God, I love M&A. I worked on about 150 deals in my career at Google and at Slack, and gosh. Right now, people are looking at all these deals and saying, oh my God, like this is crazy. It's destroying the foundations of the valley and blah, blah, blah. It's like, child, please. You weren't focusing on M&A. This stuff is going on for decades. It's always been going on, but now it's just the media spotlight is there.
Give us a bit of an elevator pitch of what you mean by the offers that are going on right now in the valley, because I'm sure a lot of people outside are not as versed into
exactly. Yeah, so people see Alexander Wang, and great question. You're a great host. Again, like and subscribe to his channel. Alexander Wang from Scale AI, a data labeling company, super smart dude. He worked early in Quora. One of my friends was executive of Quora, and when they brought him in at 17, 18 years old, he was performing better than Stanford engineers with master's degrees. And when they did layoffs, they decided to hold on to the 17-year-old over those people because he's a critical contributor to Quora. The guy is cracked. And anyone who's like, oh, he's not an AI researcher, blah, blah, you're smoking crack for denying this guy. He is good, and if he plays his cards properly, Zuck is like 40-something, so he's got at least he's at minimum 15 more years leading if he wants to. But if he's looking for a heir apparent and things work out with Alexander, and they could, Alexander could be a heir apparent to be like taking over Facebook, and that would be amazing. Now, he had Scale AI, and if data labeling company that's made a lot of these AI models possible, from even DeepMind's models they had to work for to doing work for OpenAI. Like, people attack him because they're like arrogant and say, oh, didn't get his AI research, blah, blah. Well, he was the guy giving you the gasoline so your models would work. So I value him more than I value anything to do with your PhD. And so they bought his company for Facebook, got 49% of the company for $14.9 billion. So it's actually $14.3 billion. Okay, they didn't get the whole entire company, and they got board seats. And it was the whole entire plan was just basically to free Alexander from Scale AI so he could come in and lead Facebook's new AI team. Now, Alexander, he was able to pick the most cracked people from Scale AI, 50 folks. One of my friends actually made it onto there, and I was like, yes, My friends made it. Hell yeah, we're in, boys. And it turned out that people are like, why are they paying this much money for him? They're not even buying the company. And it's, you think of it in this terms. Because I was a typical American back in the day, when Facebook bought WhatsApp for 10% of Facebook's value, I was like, what the hell is this crap? And then, because I love Indian people and they're fantastic, even though I look like I'm Indian, but I'm not. And the reason why I say I look like it is because when I'm on Twitter and I defend H-1Bs, I get racist who goes to me, you stupid Indian, you support H-1Bs. I'm like, I'm not even Indian. What's going on here? Jays.
That's amazing.
And so,
It makes me think of, the series, the TV series RC Development, obviously.
No, tell me.
You should watch that. That's amazing.
Link in the show
An
notes.
old series from the 2000s. And so, like in one of them, one of the guys saying, oh, yeah, we're going to get some help from our Mexican friends from Colombia. And the other guy is saying, I think they are just called Colombians. So it's like exactly that.
It's so good. You just put a link in there. And I love good comedy. I was raised. My mother most of my life, it would be get my elementary school homework done and then get home in time at 5:30 and 6 to watch Simpsons reruns. And I just watched 90s Simpsons 24/7 to the point where, like, I see Conan O'Brien, because he used to write for my genuflect to Conan O'Brien. He's the greatest thing ever. But I love fantastic comedy. And then, so anyways, people would say whatever. And kind of connecting it back to Alexander Wang. So they ended up, Facebook bought WhatsApp for 10% its value, and I was like, what is this crap? And eventually, Indian people are fantastic, and I got a lot of awesome Indian friends, and they would say, oh, you're going to text message me? No. You stupid American, we use WhatsApp. And thank God for Indian Americans, because now my whole entire life is on WhatsApp. I have, you're part of all my groups. It's, fantastic. And I was doubting Zuckerberg then, and now I'm like, I'm an idiot. Now with the Scale AI deal, people are like, he paid so much. He put down 10% of Facebook's value back in the 2000s for 40 engineers at WhatsApp. Dog, 10% of the value, okay? Now, do you know what that's worth now? I mean, I think Facebook's worth, what, $3 trillion last I checked or something? So you're talking at least like $300 billion for 40 people. That makes this whole Scale AI deal look like peasant's feet. I did the calculation. It worked out to, it was like less than, you guys are all stats people, so please look, M&A, not a stats person, be easy on me. It worked out to be like less than 1% of its current market cap. So it's a rounding error. Now look at, I like investing. And investing is about taking risk. And you have to do risk reward analysis when you buy a certain stock. It's okay, I can buy a stock at $100 a share, and it might go up $5 over next year. But at the same time, I'm longing it, and it could also go down $70 or $50 a share. That's not a good risk return. Whereas I could buy a $10 stock. It has a good opportunity to go through phase 1, phase 2, 3 FDA trials and get approved, because I know I've been doing the research. It's a good molecule, good team, and this thing could probably be 100 bagger on this. So 10 to 100, so a 10x at the risk of it going to nothing and me losing my $10. 10 to 1, that's a good risk. So Zuckerberg is like, you know what? I could end up, this goes nowhere, and Alexander does nothing for me. And I paid less than 1% of, no, it's 14 billion. So actually it's not even 1%. It's 0.001% or something ridiculous. And that's like a rounding error for us. But if he nails it, he could lead our market cap to 3 trillion to 4 trillion to 5 trillion. So that's a good risk. And another thing, they've already showed the LLMs are integrating, and it's increasing their ad conversion on Instagram and also on Facebook. So it's already paying dividends on this thing. But my main point is everyone's losing their mind over these compensation packages, but they've already been going on forever in the Valley. It's just people are not paying attention. Nor does it mean it's destroying the social contract in the Valley. I've heard a stupid argument being made that's saying, oh, well, what's going on now is they're just stealing good talent from the company, leaving it there, and screwing everyone over. It's like, no. If Zuckerberg had its way, if, let's say, me and you are at Facebook, and we're in the M&A team, I get to work with you, which is fantastic. I'm like, oh, God, fantastic. The Bayesian guys here, like and subscribe. This is great. We're going to go buy a company for $10 billion. Do we want to buy the whole entire company, get all the engineers, all the IP, or do we just want to pay $10 billion, only get a few people, but then the company continues and could compete against us and work with our competitors. What would you like? Taking the company out with $10 billion, or leaving a zombie company that could actually cause you problems down the road? What would you do? You would go for the former, right? Well, the reason why they didn't go for the former is a thing called the FTC and antitrust, and they're trying to block deals. And so that's why they went for 49% control stake. If they went for 51% stake, the FTC would go, investigation, antitrust, let's go. And so that's why you're seeing these weird deals. That's because Silicon Valley wants to do it. No, they want to just buy you and have you and get rid of all the skeletons. They don't want to have this zombie thing around that could cause them problems down the road, just like we saw with the windsurf deal. The windsurf deal, originally, windsurf is basically, it is like a cursor. It's not that big in the market. It was doing decently. OpenAI wanted to buy them because right now what's going on is Cursor helps you do code, and it taps into OpenAI models. When you use Cursor, it then sends a request to OpenAI models, and OpenAI sees the code you're requesting, but does not see if Alex accepted that commit and said that was good or not. And OpenAI needs that, because if they get that signal, dog, they can say, oh, Alex didn't like all that. That sucked. Let's try a new model. And then Alex is like, this is great. Here's more money. And that was the missing piece of the pie. So they went to do that deal. And then it turned out that also, I think your heater is clicking on real quick. Sorry, I'm probably in the spectrum. Is that your heater or AC in the background?
That probably is the how do you say in English, the
oh, there we go. Okay, I'm good. I'm sorry. It's weird. It's weird sometimes. Okay, so you're cool. So what happened was, I know, right? Don't forget to like and subscribe. What happened was, the deal was announced. Rumors were happening that was going to happen, and then all of a sudden, because Microsoft invested in OpenAI and has this really good contract that says, like, we get a right to all of your IP, Microsoft's like, hey, so if you're going to spend $3 billion on Windsurf, we also want all that IP so we can make our own competing product. And Sam Altman was like, hey, go jump in a lake. I'm not going to do that. And this was delaying the deal, and Sam wanted to buy the whole entire company. And just because the word that they were going to get the completion, that OpenAI could get Windsurf, which means they'll see completion data of when Alex uses GPT-4o for completions versus Claude for completions, that's the holy grail of information. Anthropic said, actually, because of even the rumor of that, we're blocking Windsurf from being used in Claude from using Windsurf. Just the rumor of that. So then, OpenAI walks away from the deal. Now, Windsurf, who was like a second or third in the market compared to Cursor, is now getting Claude, one of the best Claude models, cut off from access, which is like getting gut punched. I mean, you know more about this. I'm just M&A. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, okay? I slept at a Holiday Inn Express last night. And so all this is going on. And then Windsurf's like, what are we going to do? Google reaches out and says, hey, we'll give you like $2.4 billion, but we only want the top engineers. We would take the whole entire company, but we're under antitrust scrutiny too. So do you either want to have this $2.4 billion exit be broken up because of this, or do you want to deal with the situation? And so they gave them the same deal. When I say deal with the situation, do you want to make this deal happen even though it's the best of like making it land? Because this is the same type of deal that Google gave the people from Character AI when they took Gnome and crew. They basically said, we want to buy your whole entire company, but because of antitrust, we'll give you a lot of money, but then we'll just take over Gnome and whatnot. So they did the same deal. And because of this, again, people were like, oh my God, Google's screwing people over. This is the end of the valley. It's like, no. They're just playing, the game is slanted against them in the M&A direction. And I'm not playing a violin for a multi-trillion-dollar company. Like, they have money fights up there. They have the Willy Wonka chocolate river, all the other good stuff. But this is what they have to deal with to make a deal go through. And what Google did, what was nice, is it said, okay, we're going to do this, take the people we want, but we're also going to give you an extra $100 million in the treasury of Windsurf so that you can pay out retention and stay bonuses to the people that remain so they get paid pretty well. But then Devin came in and said, we want to buy what's existing left because we're not dealing with antitrust scrutiny. We can do that. And that's how it all landed. So connecting all this back, these gigantic pay packages aren't anything new. And the fact that they're so huge is just because you engineers are beautiful. You can just you clickety-clack on the keyboard. You said you do open source stuff. You're clickety-clacking there, and then Jesse's like, oh, this is great. I'm just going to grab some of that and put that into my stack, and now I'm making money. And so because you're so great, you get paid a lot because of scale. So that's how this all connects. And another thing, too, is people like to take the edge case and say it's representative of the whole entire sample population. Hey, look, I know about stats. I'm on Bayesian's stat show with Alex. This is great. And so they look at that at M&A and say it's indicative of the rest of what's going on in M&A. And it's like, no, that's like me seeing what Taylor Swift's plans are for getting married and saying, oh, that represents all women in America. It's like you're getting someone worth billions of dollars and saying it represents all women in America. Stop smoking crack. And when you deal with acquisitions in the billions of dollars, you're dealing with savior economics. What is savior economics? You have CEOs who have trillions of dollars in market cap, and they're worrying about losing that power. And so if they see something they want that's going to be their savior, oh, Jesus Christ, I feel the spirit, they're willing to say, YOLO, dog, like whatever you need. So I'm just going to throw ridiculous amounts of money on that. And so seeing these gigantic offers, now people are finally paying attention to M&A, and saying it's indicative of like whatever like a nice mid-tier engineer is going to get or something, that's a mid-tier engineer is never going to get that. That's like the odds of 1 in a trillion. So that's why I tell people, like, just don't focus on that. Instead of focus on your core job. And if you're working in tech right now, when the average, I think the median income in America, let's check right now. I think it's $40,000 or $50,000. Median income U.S. Hey, you're not talking about San Francisco and the Bay Area. It's $40,000 since 2023. That's what maybe junior engineers, maybe year 2 or year 3 engineers at maybe a Google or some even firm will get in a bonus, and that's like the low end. So if you're in tech right now and you're employed and you're working in a medium tier or top tier company, I mean, it goes without saying, you're winning. Don't look at these $50 million, $100 million deals because that's a lottery ticket, And so, anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I say it as a joke. I mean, yes, do like and subscribe, but I just throw it in there as like, because everyone always says it all the time. Don't, and buy Skillshare and get AG1 and then go into Masterworks. Is it Masterworks? Does Masterworks support you at all? No? Okay, I was going to make a Masterworks joke later on. Never go. Go, continue. You have the floor.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, that makes me think also, a bit of the way athletes are getting compensated. At some point money doesn't mean anything, especially like whether that's baseball or soccer or football. At some point, like the ones at the very, very, very high tier almost doesn't mean anything anymore. What's 10 more millions per year?
Yeah, Ronaldo's like, just throw it to the pile, I guess. I'll. Yeah. What Latin American or European country should I buy with my salary now?
Yeah. It's like, like, or Messi getting 10% of the Apple TV contract with the MLS,
I wish I wish this was my show right now, because instead, like, what you do is so much more fascinating with the crap I do, because you're doing sports and stats, and that's just like, that's holy grail. Like, dog, did you grow up watching ESPN? Or you're in France? They have ESPN in France? Like, all I did was,
we do if you have the cable, or you can always get it through some.
But we never covered God's sport, which is European football. We were mostly back in the 90s, mostly American football and things like that. So probably not as much, but like I was always in elementary school to high school, like after Simpsons, like time to go to ESPN and just watch sports for like a couple of hours. And I never thought you could get a career in that. And to see you have a career in that, I'm just like, my boy has made it. Hell yeah, dog. So where to next? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so I think I want to play us out because you've already been very generous with your time, and I need to ask you the last 2 questions. But first, I'm curious, so we can go in either direction. I think there is an interesting thread about, all the GPU stuff that you mentioned a bit, but I think it's interesting. Lately, we've seen a lot of deals, Oracle, OpenAI, GPU costs, data centers, blah, blah, blah. And I know you have some thoughts about that, maybe to make that clearer to people, and mainly also to always bring that back to why would that matter to a technical audience that is either working in tech or tech adjacent or looking into getting into tech. So either that, or I'm also curious, what was your craziest or funniest ever M&A deal that you had?
Alex, this show needs 1 million subs, dog. You guys, those are some good questions, dude. Like, yo, I'm seriously, if y'all are listening to this guy's working a full-time job and putting this on for you for free. Like, just do me a favor and reshare and share it with your homies. Like, it means a lot. Like, F these algorithms, because the algorithms are like, he didn't do a booty shake video in this. Where are the cats in this video? So we're not going to pump it. So, like, your shares and retweets are huge. And, and so, ooh, God, the first question, second question. First question, when it comes to any tech boom, there is real economic activity, and there's speculative activity. And so when it came to crypto, the last tech boom, there was very little real economic activity being generated from crypto outside of people using Bitcoin as a store of value. And that was a wet dream for libertarians, for people who were worried about U.S. debt, for people who wanted an easy way to move money across the border and things like that. I will say stable coins, what the Collison brothers are doing, is going to lead to real economic value. But before what the Collison brothers are doing with stable coins and stuff like that, and I'm not a big crypto guy, it was just mostly just like speculative money running around. Now with AI, based on the fact that I basically, when I saw ChatGPT, I reorganized my whole entire career, and then I saw that I could answer customer support tickets, and then I'm seeing now that there's, simple statistics of or research on if you give a customer service employee access ChatGPT and they are new to your product and what you're doing as a job with customer service, if you give it ChatGPT that has access to just how the product works, they will perform as well as a customer service agent who has had 5 to 6 months of experience. That's real, and especially in customer service that has high attrition and turnover. If it makes it so you can onboard people faster, then your training costs are going to go down for human training costs, not AI training costs. And then also they've shown that people who are using AI as customer service agents have less stress and are willing to stay in their job longer. So that's real economic activity. Now, here's always the issue. For every $1 of economic activity, you have about $10 in speculative activity chasing it because they're fighting to get to that $1. They're fighting to get to the real revenue Jordan is paying. They're fighting to get that MoveWorks contract. And speculative money is all the VC money coming into there, who are getting money from pensions and whatnot, and they're just doing 1,000 flower strategy of just writing checks to as many startups and seeing if just one can hit and can give me a 1,000, 10,000x return. That will make up for all the failures. And so that's what we're seeing happening in real time. And we're starting to see, and so there's not been a tech boom, financial tech boom in modern financial history without a bubble. It has to happen. And that's why I'm not trying to be like some libertarian pushing whatever. I'm more liberal in my politics or whatnot. I think people in the elderly should have teeth and people should be able to eat. But other than that, for us able-bodied, we should probably work. It sucks though. I hate working. I just want to play video games. And so if you have a centralized planned economy, you don't experiment with stuff because everything's centralized planned. And then if you do plan something, you're using tons of taxpayers' resources. And when it does explode, because central planning doesn't work that much, you can make some arguments for China. It's pretty bad. Whereas in our system, it's like, no, we're just going to have Andreessen Horowitz. We're going to have Sequoia and the rest of them just throw trillions of dollars at things. And if it fails, because it does fail, they're going to eat it on their balance sheet. And they're not going to be doing what we did in the financial crisis and using federal subsidized loans and then ask the federal government to bail you out. So it's messy. That's the way it has to be. But also it's like a forest fire too. When the bubble does happen, it's going to send, I'm in California, so there's always a fire going on somewhere constantly, either created in the forest or whatnot. And when these forest fires do happen, it takes out the little startups and different companies, which is a tragedy, and I hate it because a lot of people get hurt. But when that does happen, it clears out the undergrowth, which then leads to cheaper input prices for the companies that actually are generating real economic value, and it allows them to then deliver services cheaper to the end user. But it's a brutal process, but it always happens. And just because it does happen, it's not representative if there's any value actually in AI. There is value. It's just people are using it as an excuse to say, see, I told you so. The cracks are going to happen. So there's basically the haters. Now, craziest thing I've seen in M&A, there's stories I just can't tell because eventually I took a 2-year career break. I'm going to go back in the business. But I'll tell you the story that makes me look back and feel like I've done good things in my life. We had one deal where a company had about 20, 30 employees. They were like the Uber of home cleaning, and the CEO of the company was fantastic. She was, I forget her name, but that's terrible, but I gotta look it up in notes. The company's called Homejoy, and I don't know if you remember back in the day. Hold on real quick. That's my dad. Gary, say hello.
How you doing?
Gary says hello. Gary, we're gonna finish up in 15 minutes. I love you. Bye. And so I take care of my dad just to prove he's real. Actually, no, it's just AI. It's Sora too. None of this is real. Just what is real is like and subscribe. Okay, so she's awesome person who ran it, but she didn't have the Uber money to say, hey, what we're doing is technically illegal under current rules, but I'll just see you in court because I have unlimited money. She was just about to raise her next amount of money, and the state of California sent her a letter saying what you're doing is not up to the rules, the way you're classifying employees. So every venture capitalist said, we're not giving you any more money. And it was terrible. And so she then had 2 weeks left of payroll. She came to us in a week and it was like, Google, these are awesome people, but we just went tits up, and they have mortgages and everything, and I don't want to see them go unemployed. I feel terrible as a founder. Can you please help my people? I'm not going to get any money out of this, but I'm here to work as long as possible to make sure they land. And I was like, I was like, God damn it, that was so heartfelt and sincere, and you're such a great person. Oh, give me the information on the people. And so we spent 2 weeks just grinding to do due diligence on them and everything, and then we got them in and got them jobs. And they all landed, and it was like, it felt so good that all of them got jobs, and it made me feel good that I did something well. And then I went back to my job hating my life, and I'm just kidding. Second one was, I did deals for Google X, and there was this guy who was a typical engineer who just I just want to solve hard problems. And I know about people with Alzheimer's, they have shaky hands, and they can't eat soup, and that sucks. So I'm going to make a spoon that, based upon your gyrations, it auto-corrects, and it'll allow you to have soup, even though your hands are shaky. And, yeah, baller, dude. This is why I love tech, dog. It's just how can you not be excited about technology? There are a lot of things that are bad in society. I major in political science. I know them. I can go on forever. But tech is always a glimmer of hope, and is always an opportunity to give people more, pull people out of poverty, give people better. Like my dad, for instance, he has terrible arthritis right now. He can't use a computer anymore. I gave him ChatGPT Plus. He talks that thing every day. Search for news on this, what's going on here and there. It's giving him part of his life back, and it's fantastic. I had the Notebook LLM CEO on her channel. She's fantastic. She was saying one of her person who uses the most tokens on her new app, Hux, which basically looks at all of your Google Calendar, Gmail, and it's like an admin, and in the morning gives you an audio recording of what's going on in your life and what's coming up. It's fantastic. I use it. She said one guy just uses it to have conversations while he's in the truck not because he's replacing his wife or his kids, but he just wants someone to talk to on an 8-hour drive. And it's making him feel less lonely, which is cool. So tech is fantastic. So anyways, going back to the deal, he eventually gets the spoon working, and his girlfriend's like, yeah, I know a family, some grandmother who used to make soup all the time. She can't because her hand's shaking now. She can't even eat it. Let's try the spoon. So grandmother's there. Grandmother's kids are there, grandmother's whole family's there, and then the engineer's there, and then his girlfriend is there. And grandma, they surprise her with a spoon. They show her soup, and she's like, I can't eat this because of my hands. And they're like, no, try the spoon. They turn it on, and she's like, wait a minute, it's steady. And then she goes in, and she gets a little bit of soup, and she gets happy again, and she's like teardrop. And then her kids start crying. And then, everyone else starts crying. And then his girlfriend starts crying. And the engineer is looking around and is like, fuck! Oh, there's something wrong. And internally, there's something wrong. What's wrong? And so he then he goes to his girlfriend, can I talk to you on the side? And so he's like, I'm so sorry. that this messed up. Like, what's wrong? Tell me to fix it. She's like, his girlfriend's like crying again. She becomes a wife. It's like, no, you dummy. You gave them their grandmother back. She has her life back. And she gave him a kiss and said thank you. And he's like, oh. And so I was just like, that's why I love about M&A. That's why I love about tech. That's what you all should be excited about. What's going on in our life now. Let's get to real work. I know this is your show. You have the question about me going back in time, right? Or what is it?
Yeah, but first that was great. Like, thank you. I really love these answers. And can
you're welcome.
Spoon be bought anywhere?
You know what? It got by sure, Alzheimer.
I feel like
spoon
known much more.
Yeah,
it's not like Alzheimer's disease is gonna get down with years. We get older and older. Exactly.
And that's another story. I have a VC friend who works at Peter Thiel, and he's all in biotech, and he just has stories for days, dog. We doesn't really talk, but we talk about just like, I like this solution, what the guy was trying to do, but I like the better solution. I'm just like, can't we just get like something that figures out which genes in concert, or what thing is going on in our body that leads to you having Alzheimer's, and just fix it, and just get that out of our system. Rebuild. I gotta see on Amazon, but like Google bought the technology, and then reorgs and things like that happen, and so they were selling it, but I think they stopped selling it for some odd reason. We'll go more into that. So yeah, thanks, man.
I'm
Good.
impressed by your ability to do digressions into digressions, and then still be able to get back to your train of thought. This is impressive. I think you're I think if I remember correctly, Victor Hugo, the writer, was doing that in his book. Like, when you read, it's like, I don't remember if it's him or Émile Zola, but like it's like one parenthesis inside one, and then it gets closed. So like the modern version of Victor Hugo, which is
thank you. You're making this brown man blush. No, I appreciate that, dogs. I want to make sure the thread is connecting, and the thread's connecting like fantastic, because it's just like my mind will kind of like, it's like branching. It's like decision tree branches. I'm like, oh, I gotta touch that real quick, but I gotta bring it back up to this. It's kind of like when the Gemini does tree search, and it's like, okay, how do I exploit? But then when do I stop exploiting? Or is Monte Carlo almost like Monte Carlo? I'm gonna stop, but you know what I mean. Okay, cool. Yeah. Let's go to your awesome question. You had the question.
Yeah, the last two questions I ask every guest at the end of the show, because I feel like we could do a 3-hour episode, like no problem. But let's be respectful of your time. So, first question: if you could have no, actually, you make me lose my train of thought. This is not good. First question: if you had unlimited time and resources, which problem would you try to solve?
Oh, so I have a personal vendetta against cancer, like many people have here. They all know someone. My mother, God bless her, she's in heaven right now. She fought cancer for 14 years. She passed away during my first year of high school. And when we went to the church service, it was standing room only. The priest said, I've never seen this place so packed. There's people like outside there. And I remember the saying where there was, and there's a lot of great, rich, wealthy people, but for rich people, sometimes you come to the funeral for your pocketbook and see what you can get out of the estate. But for my mother's funeral, who she was on welfare, had nothing, people were there for their hearts. And so we lost an amazing person in the community, but she's always in my heart. And she she was on welfare, had nothing, living in Silicon Valley, had 2 kids. My biological dad wasn't there, but she every day was like, what can I focus on that's good? And I still, as time goes on, I have more respect for her, because I couldn't imagine having kids and knowing that you're going to die before they even cross the age of 18. Like that pressure. But she was like, I can't change that, but what I can change is a smile on my face and laughter and making people feel good. And then my dad, my non-biological dad, my adopted dad, in 2016, he got stage 4 cancer. And the doctor said, we'll do chemo. And chemo only shrunk the tumor by 30%. And my co-host, Joe Ternasky, who's a friend of mine, and I love him like a brother, he was reading research on immunotherapy. He was like, ask your doctor about this type of immunotherapy. It went through phase 3 trials. They probably can get it. And I was just like, God damn it, Joe, why are you so just awesome? So eventually I asked about that, and he got the right type of, he got Keytruda or something. And now, knock on wood, he's been in remission for a decade. He was over there, right there. Doctor gave him a few treatments and was like, "Yep, well, looks like it's gone, all gone. You're not stage 4 anymore. Come back once a year for like a MRI." And I was like, and so I was like crying tears of joy, but at the same time, then like, did you ever see that movie There Will Be Blood by any chance? I see your eye expressions. I love that because it's like there's a I watched it, I've seen it like 3 times. There's a scene when he discovers there's oil, and then all of a sudden you see him go to the assessor's office. And he's like, and he hears music going in the background. His mind goes dun 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 because he realizes he makes so much money. He's like, "Give me every land, give it all." And so when that happened, like back in my mind, I was like, "Okay, I'm dun 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 dun." So I'm going on the internet looking for different types of stocks, and I YOLO'd into one stock called Cart Pharma. And it was going through the phase trials, and it was like ups and downs, and eventually got acquired. I was like, yes! I was like, my dad lives, and I got a little bit of money, yay! So cancer. I spent all my time on cancer research. I feel like I'm seeing certain cancers get cured, and it's just we're at the right time now with either immunotherapy, CAR T therapy, just different ways of doing it. I feel like there's progress being made. Before my mother's generation, it was just like, okay, cancer is like a terrorist inside of a city, and so the way that chemotherapy works is we're just going to drop a nuke on that city and hope we get the terrorist. Whereas with CAR T therapy and whatnot, it's like we're sending in SEAL Team 6, and they're going to do one shot, one kill on that cancer, and everyone else is going to live. And that's what I think we're seeing in our lifetime, and it's beautiful. So all my resources on just investing in researchers who are doing cancer, bringing cancer drugs to phase trials. Now, your second question. Why don't you go for that one?
Yeah, but first, fantastic answer, Jordan. Thanks. And yeah, completely agree with you. That's why tech and science are amazing. Like, because now, completely agree with you, and I feel like, so for instance, I've never known my grandmother from my mother's side. She died a few years before I was born.
Sorry.
So, that's always been something, like I would have loved to know her, and that was of course because of cancer. And I feel like in her time, that was really, it was like HIV at the beginning, where it was a death sentence, and now HIV is pretty much people can live with it, and they just take pills without a lot of big side effects, which is just like already incredible. And then cancer now, more and more different cancers are curable, and people can still live comfortably without having too many troubles, and that's fantastic. And yeah, that's a research I always follow closely. And so, like you, I feel like, I mean, I hope so. I'm obviously biased, but I feel like we're at a tipping point where probably in the coming years, hopefully, we'll find something that will hopefully obliterate these terrible. I mean, is that even a disease? I don't know even the scientific word. I don't think it's a disease, but yeah, like these.
Right, it's true, because if you think about, like, what is it doing? It's replicating. It's doing like mitosis, meiosis on steroids, which cells should be doing, but it's doing it way too much. And there's a little bit of damage there. So it's like you're trying to tell your body, okay, is there a way you can like allow it to have the mitosis? I'm sorry, I'm not a biology person. All throughout the system, but then this cluster of cells is doing it way too much. Can you like do apoptosis and tell it to stop and die? And so I think like immunotherapy, what it was basically doing was going through my dad's system and saying, okay, the white blood cells were looking at these cancer cells and saying, no, these are just his cells, they're fine, leave it alone. But then the immunotherapy was like, no, we're going to flip protein on these because these are damaged, and then let the white blood cells just kill these things and leave everything else. Compared to chemotherapy, was like, we're just going to blow everything up. And no shade against chemotherapy and the persons that created it, because it was best at time, it was better than what we had before. But to finally see we're moving the frontier in cancer treatments, that is positive. Because it looked like there was no end in sight with my mom when she passed in 2001. Another thing, your grandmother. So sorry to hear about that. I want to do a side tangent. Right now, there's a big people on Twitter, Brian Johnson, all of them want to live forever. And I think it's fantastic. I'm glad he open sources research. You can hate on the man he wants, but he opens up what he's trying to do, and he loves life. Great. Now, I was joking with Jesse, because I was telling Jesse, I was like, I think it's great that people are going to be able to live forever. And Jesse's like, that doesn't mean immortality. I'm like, F off, Jesse. What I'm talking about is Lord of the Rings elves type immortality, where yes, you can still get shot by Sauron by a dagger and die, but you're not going to die of cancer. You're not going to die of the sniffles. You're not going to die of diseases. And you could live forever so long as you don't get hit by a chariot or a catapult. That's what I want. And I was thinking, for people who are against that, like, I don't want everyone to live forever. Okay, would you want your grandma to live forever? If you say you don't want your grandmother to live forever in good health, then either there might be some screws loose. And I was thinking about your story, your grandmother. How awesome if she was here today, seeing you, how awesome you are, where you're going in your life. You would just get a call from grandmother once a week. I just want you to know I love you. I'm proud of you. Like, people need that encouragement. And then the fact that your grandmother would be living longer and healthier, and then you're taking care of the kids, maybe she's like, you know what? I'm feeling good enough. I want to go adopt some kids who are not getting love and encouragement too, and give them grandma love. So more people who are struggling and going through depression or thinking about hurting themselves for others have grandma love. And that's something that gets me excited. I still think longevity though is going through a hype cycle. Everyone thinks they're going to like, it's always, there's like self-driving cars. Back in 2017, I rode in the first one at Google and I was like, oh, in 5 years, we're going to have them all. 10 years later, we still haven't gotten the whole Bay Area approved for Waymo yet. Anyways, I digress. I want to get to your main question because I have notes. What's the second question about?
Second question.
Yeah.
Second question. But yeah, let's go. So second question is, if you could have dinner with any great scientific mind, dead, alive, or fictional, who would it be?
And could I time travel to their time? They're back in their time, and also how I interact with them? Will that allow me to change the timeline?
So the question is open. So sure.
Okay, great. No, I love it. This is a really good question. Okay, I have some notes on this. I love history. I love history a lot. And if I could go back, once I hit my number and whatever, I think I want to go back and become a community college professor, either in political science or history. I used to be political science, but things are too divided now, and I don't want to deal with, you're the Antichrist. I want to focus just on tight history, medieval history, Roman history, whatnot. So what I would do is, there's a guy named Hero of Alexandria, or Heron of Alexandria, who lived around first century AD in Alexandria. Shocker. And he came up with this device called an aliophile. Let me show you what it looks like here. You probably know this because you're a super duper smart dude. Aliophile Hero. I'm going to allow this time. I'm going to see if I can share my screen real quick. Here it is. He basically got this little device, which was like, oh, this is a cute little thing. It's a simple bladeless radial steam turbine, which spins when the central water container is heated. Torque is produced, steam jets exit the turbine. The Greek-Egyptian magician Hero of Alexandria described the device in 1st century AD, and many sources give him credit for the invention. However, Vitruvius was the first to describe the appearance in his day architecture. So I'm going to say Hero created it. Now, if you look at this is like a proto-steam engine. It doesn't have the piston. It doesn't have the right gears. It doesn't have the cooling mechanism for the coil, so it can connect to a piston and suck water in and back out or whatnot. But this is 70-80% of the way there. Yes, the metallurgy isn't correct and blah, blah, blah. What I would do, and I took my notes here, is I would meet him in his time. And you'd probably see me and be like, oh, interesting. And the Egyptian's talking to me, even though I'm not an Egyptian. Or you might see an Indian, but I'm like, even not. And I'm this guy.
Where's your H-1B?
Exactly. Yeah, I get deported. No. But I'm disguised as a Greek in Alexandria, and I tell him, this is awesome what you're doing, but could you adapt this with gears? And I tell him like a gears and a piston, and I would show him what this is, and to make it so it can open temple doors and get people closer to God. But in order for us to do this, we need to create tech priests, Warhammer 40k reference, to maintain this, and eventually tech priest guilds supported by the temples, and they can go from other temples. So now you have an order connected to God to protect this technology. I didn't say, hey, now what you need to do is connect it to a water wheel, and then we can start like doing Industrial Revolution. Why not? Because slavery was still a gigantic thing. Europeans were enslaved, everyone's enslaved, and you have free labor. So why mechanize? You saw this when my ancestors were enslaved in the South. The South in America never wanted to go past an agrarian economy and never go into industrialization because you had free bodies, you know? And so anyways, this leads to tech priests now all over these temples who know this art of how to make doors magically open, because he created a system where you could put a coin into a little house and it would dispense holy water when you're at a shrine. And people were like, wow, this is like God. If he had these doors opening up and the priest would say, God, come visit us, Zeus, and the doors, people would flip and they'd want to become tech priests too, and it would become a whole guild protecting the secrets of how this works. Not to protect it, but like making sure that it's not economical focused, it's focused on spirituality, so money is coming to it, even though it doesn't make economic sense, we still have slavery. And then what happens is the kids start seeing their parents learning this, and they start going to random trades, and they say, hey, you know what, I'm a miner now, and I realize there's so much water down here, and I have bucket brigades of slaves doing this, not working. Oh yeah, I remember that steam technology my dad was using to open the doors. We might be able to use it to pump water out of these mining rigs, because slaves are dying in there, but now we can go deeper and get more resources. So now you have economic use cases. And then Rome starts seeing more profit from this, and they get prestige on doing this with great temples. We have our mine shafts being cleared by this, and now people are seeing these tech priests have a lot of uses, and we're going to start expanding all this. Then you're going to start seeing temples bathhouses adopting this and things like that, and people start replicating this. Then, as time goes on, this becomes so efficient that the institution of slavery, maybe in 200, 300 AD, starts seeing some cracks because the metallurgy gets better, the efficiency, the work these steam engines can do makes better sense, and you see the Roman Empire actually extend itself and not collapse in the West by 300, 400 AD. Really, Rome didn't collapse until 1453 because Byzantines never thought they were Byzantines. They thought they were Romans. And they'd be like, Byzantine, that's what some person called us later in the future. But let's just say the West doesn't collapse. So then what happens is you start getting better machines, get a free labor force of educated artisans and engineers. A middle class starts developing. You then see proto-democracy maybe start happening in 300 AD or so, like a true democracy. Rome had a oligarchy at best, and you had to be of noble birth. Emperor powers fade, and then you see a political economy shift. Steam and trade guilds, and you see capitalism start happening 1,200 years earlier, dog. So instead of us having capitalism in like 1500s, 1600s or whatnot, we're having it in 400, 500. And then we see more education, scientific method starts happening. Global trade network is powered by steam fleets. Feudalism, the Dark Ages and serfdom, we skip that. So people forget that like Eastern Europe with serfdom, like most East Europeans and the Tsar were slaves until the late 1800s. We skip all that stuff. We skip it all in Europe. We go for more democracy, and then we might hit printing press and electricity by 1000 AD. Whew. Okay, so we took the steam engine at 1712, the new Cummins steam engine or whatnot that we got that led to industrial revolution. We bring it into it by 1,000 years. So where we're at right now, we're 700 years in the future that we live in right now. Could you imagine 700 years more of progress of what we're experiencing right now? So we probably would have Mars taken care of, all diseases eradicated, free labor, whatnot. We might have not had World War I or World War II. We might have had all these bad things not happen, but most importantly, that means I never would have used Workday or Concur, and I would never have to use Workday technology. My life would be good. So that's that's the real reason why I wanted to do it. Just avoid Workday and Concur. But anyways, that's my answer. I hope you liked it.
Man, that was great. That was officially the most worked out answer of the whole show. And that's episode 146. So, 145 people before you worked on that, and you were the most worked out. So, yeah, well done.
Thank you, dog, because back in I learned about him back in high school, and my mind would just keep on ticking about what if he someone told him this is not just a toy, this is the future, dog, and but then thinking of how do I anchor it in something that's uneconomical that they're going to protect and see value, and anchor it in religion back then. So anyways, that's how my mind works.
So that makes me think of a book I read a few years ago that's called How to Invent Everything, A Survival Guide for the Stranded Time Traveler by Ryan North. So I did a link in the show notes about that. It's really good. It's a fun one, you can read it. It's like small snippets of any big inventions, how to make that again. So yeah, like I think you would enjoy it. It seems like you enjoy how's it called, alternative history or something.
Yeah,
like that?
yeah. I mean, just think about like I grapple with systems thinking of history. I'm a kind of a systems guy of like systems environment, like leads a lot of things. And then there's like great man theory, great man or woman theory of history. It's always just great people. And I'm more of the systems side, but there are times in history where it's like, oh, if this one person was paying attention, they would have saw the attack coming in and it would have prevented that society from collapsing or something. Mm-hmm. And so I love those what if scenarios. Oh, sorry, last thing. There was a democratic election in China, like in the 1910s or 1920s, and the guy who got elected democratically unfortunately got assassinated, and he was well liked by the population. If that not would have happened, you never would have had the whole Taiwan thing. You never would have had maybe Mao. You might have had a democracy that was more on the European side that was like, a lot of peasants are living in terrible life. Let's give them education and give them some sort of stake in society. And you might have skipped the whole CCP, and maybe you would have had, instead of the 1970 and 1980 economic revolution in China, you would have had starting in 1912. And we have a completely different conversation right now. Maybe they would be closer allies to us. So anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so. I want to end your own show, but I will because I'm a hypocrite. Thank you so much for being on here. I like having me on here. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comment section, guys. Be nice to me.
No, yeah, that was super fun. Thank you so much, Jordan, for taking the time. So people, if you want to dig deeper, as always, check out the show notes. It was really great to have you on the show. It was a very original episode, but at the same time very practical. And I think, and I always love having people on the show who are like you, obviously very smart, very passionate, but you also seem like someone who is very generous and in touch with people's feelings and how to make the world a better place with tech and M&A and anything. And I think it's awesome because we need more people like you, and to hear more about people like you instead of hearing very bad stuff all the time. And that's also why I make these shows. So Jordan, thanks again for taking the time and being on this show.
Dude, Alex, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, too. Thank you for having me here. I had a great time, and thank you to all your listeners for listening to this, and we'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comment section. Thank you so much. Take care.
This has been another episode of Learning Bayesian Statistics. Be sure to rate, review, and follow the show on your favorite podcatcher, and visit learnbaystats.com for more resources about today's topics, as well as access to more episodes to help you reach true Bayesian state of mind. That's learnbaystats.com. Our theme music is Good Bayesian by Baba Brinkman, feat MC Loss and Megaran. Check out his awesome work at bababrinkman.com. I'm your host, Alex Andorra. You can follow me on Twitter at Alex_Andorra, like the country. You can support the show and unlock exclusive benefits by visiting patreon.com/learnbaystats. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. You're truly a
good Bayesian. Change your predictions after taking information in. And if you're thinking I'll be less than amazing, let's adjust those expectations. Let me show you how to be a good Bayesian. Change calculations after taking fresh data in. Those predictions that your brain is making, let's get them on a solid foundation.